Hello and welcome to this course. Explore the evolution of thought, a comprehensive journey through philosophy. I'm your instructor. I have been teaching philosophy for nearly 2 decades now at a university, and I've designed this course so that anyone with an interest in this subject can access a clear and concise introduction to its vast landscape. This is not just another introductory philosophy course. It is my hope that by the end of this course, you will not only have learned about some of the key concepts and figures in philosophy, but you will also have developed the ability to think philosophically about any subject matter. The goal of philosophy, after all, is not to teach you what to think, but rather how to think. In this section, we'll begin by looking at some of the ways that philosophers throughout history have defined the nature of philosophy itself. We'll then turn to consider the central features of philosophical thinking, which are reason and logic, imagination and language, analysis and critical thinking. And finally, we'll explore the various branches of philosophy and how they work together to form the whole. So let's begin with a look at how philosophers have defined philosophy. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato famously defined philosophy as a pursuit of wisdom. In his view, the philosopher is someone who loves wisdom. That is, someone who has a deep desire to understand the fundamental nature of reality and our place within it. Now, while the ancient Greeks had no comprehensive theory of reality, nor did they have much understanding of the universe beyond Earth, they nonetheless pondered deep metaphysical questions such as, what is the nature of reality? How do we acquire knowledge? What is the good life? What is justice? And how should we live? These are precisely the kinds of questions that philosophers continue to ask today, even though our answers have evolved and continue to evolve over time. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle built upon Plato's definition, arguing that philosophy involves not only a love of wisdom, but also the study of wisdom. For Aristotle, philosophy was a systematic and rational inquiry into the fundamental nature of reality, knowledge, and existence. He believed that through careful observation and logical reasoning, one could arrive at universal truths about the world and our place in it. This emphasis on reason and logic remains a central feature of Western philosophy to this day. Moving forward in time, we come to the medieval Islamic philosopher Al-Farabi, who defined philosophy as the path to understanding the divine through reason and the contemplation of nature. Al-Farabi, who was deeply influenced by both Aristotle and Plato, believed that philosophy was not merely a study of abstract concepts, but rather a way of life that should guide one's actions and shape one's character. For him, philosophy was a means of attaining not only knowledge, but also wisdom and virtue. Fast forward again to the Enlightenment era, and we encounter the Scottish philosopher David Hume, who offered his own unique perspective on the nature of philosophy. Hume argued that philosophy ought to be nothing more than common sense, since he believed that many of the complex problems that philosophers grappled with could be resolved by simply applying ordinary human reason and intuition. For Hume, philosophy was not an esoteric pursuit for a select few, but rather something that should be accessible to all. He urged his fellow philosophers to eschew abstract speculation and instead focus on the here and now, examining the actual workings of the human mind and the nature of our experience. More recently, the 20th century French philosopher Gaston Bachelard proposed that philosophy should be understood as a dialogue with the dead. In his view, the philosopher is engaged in a constant conversation with the ideas of past thinkers, building upon their insights while also challenging their assumptions and exploring new possibilities. For Bachelard, philosophy is not a static body of knowledge, but rather a living tradition that evolves over time through this ongoing dialogue between past and present. These are just a few of the many ways that philosophers have defined philosophy throughout history. Each of these definitions captures something essential about the nature of this multifaceted discipline, and taken together, they offer us a glimpse into the rich and evolving conversation that has defined philosophy from its earliest days until now. So far, we see that philosophy is about gaining wisdom, studying wisdom, understanding the divine through reason and contemplating nature, being common sense and engaging with the dead. Now let's consider the central features of philosophical thinking. As we saw earlier, the ancient Greek philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle emphasized the role of reason and logic in philosophical thinking. Reason refers to the capacity of the human mind to think logically and make deductions based on available evidence. Logic, on the other hand, is the study of correct reasoning and the principles that govern valid arguments. Together, reason and logic provide the tools necessary to analyze complex concepts and ideas, to construct coherent arguments, and to evaluate the arguments of others. Another crucial feature of philosophical thinking is imagination. Imagination enables us to create mental images and concepts that are not based on sensory experience, such as the idea of a unicorn or the concept of infinity. By using our imagination, we can explore abstract ideas and consider hypothetical situations that may never have occurred in reality. This imaginative capacity is essential for philosophical inquiry, as it allows us to envision new possibilities and challenge existing assumptions. Language is yet another critical element of philosophical thinking. Language is a system of symbols and rules that we use to communicate our thoughts and ideas. Philosophical thinking often involves the careful use of language to construct precise definitions, to distinguish between different concepts, and to avoid ambiguous or misleading expressions. By mastering the nuances of language, philosophers can express their ideas with clarity and precision, thereby reducing the potential for misunderstanding. Finally, analysis is a key aspect of philosophical thinking. Analysis involves breaking down complex concepts or arguments into their simpler components in order to better understand their nature and relationships. By analyzing a complex idea, a philosopher can uncover its underlying assumptions, identify its key features, and clarify its meaning. These four elements, reason, logic, imagination, language, and analysis, are essential for philosophical thinking. They work together to enable us to question our assumptions, to explore complex ideas, and to formulate thoughtful and well-reasoned arguments. As we continue our journey through philosophy, we'll see how these elements come together in various philosophical inquiries, and how they help us to gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Next, let's briefly explore the major branches of philosophy. Metaphysics is the study of the fundamental nature of reality, including the nature of time, space, cause and effect, identity, and existence. Epistemology, on the other hand, is the study of knowledge and how we acquire it. Philosophers in this field ask questions such as what is knowledge? How do we justify our beliefs? And what are the limits of human knowledge? Ethics is the branch of philosophy that deals with questions of right and wrong, good and evil, and moral responsibility. Philosophers in this field explore topics such as the nature of morality, the basis of ethical decision-making, and the relationship between ethics and society. Political philosophy, meanwhile, examines the nature of power, authority, and governance, as well as the relationship between individuals and the state. Philosophers in this area consider questions such as what is the best form of government, what are the rights and duties of citizens, and what is the nature of justice. Aesthetics is the study of beauty and art, and it explores questions such as what makes something beautiful, what is the purpose of art, and how do we interpret works of art. Finally, logic is the study of reasoning and argumentation, and it provides the tools for constructing valid arguments and for evaluating the arguments of others. These 5 branches of philosophy represent just a portion of the vast landscape of philosophical inquiry. Within each of these areas, there are countless subfields and specialized areas of study. Additionally, there are other ways to categorize the various branches of philosophy, such as by dividing them into theoretical philosophy, which deals with abstract concepts and ideas, and practical philosophy, which focuses on how we shall live our lives. Despite the many divisions within philosophy, however, these various branches are interconnected and often overlap with one another. For instance, questions about the nature of reality, as explored in metaphysics, have implications for our understanding of knowledge and justification, as examined in epistemology. Similarly, our understanding of morality and ethics is shaped by our conception of human nature and the world in which we live, as explored in metaphysics and other branches. As we delve deeper into the study of philosophy, we'll continue to explore the connections and intersections among these various branches, as well as the ways in which they complement and enrich one another. And that brings us to the end of our introduction to philosophy. We've looked at how philosophers have defined philosophy, considered the central features of philosophical thinking, and explored the major branches of philosophy. In the next section of the course, we'll dive deeper into one of the central features of philosophical thinking, namely logic and reasoning. We'll begin by defining key terms like argument, premise, and conclusion, and then move on to examine different types of arguments, including deductive and inductive arguments. If you enjoyed this introduction to philosophy and want to learn more, be sure to enroll in the full course. Explore the Evolution of Thought, a comprehensive journey through philosophy. I look forward to joining you in the next lesson.